And welcome to the Hillsborough County Tourist Development Council quarterly meeting. And we'll start now with a roll call. If you could, Mr. Shantz.
Yes, Rick Shantz at the County Attorney's Office. I'll call the roll. Commissioner Kemp.
Here.
Mayor Castor.
Here.
Mayor Ross.
Here.
Bob Morrison.
I know he's here.
He's muted or something.
Yeah, Bob is here, yes.
Bob, you should be good to go.
Here.
Yeah, okay. Get the pronunciation, Jeff.
I'm here.
Ignacio?
I'm here.
Lou Placencia. Joe Collier.
I'm here, outside your building.
We're there at the beach or something.
Jim Bartholomew.
I'm here.
Commissioner Kilton.
Here.
Brian Kilpatrick. Richard Gonsmart. Those are the council members.
Thank you.
Matthew is here as well, I'm sorry.
Okay.
And because this is a virtual meeting, without an in-person quorum, we cannot approve minutes of the prior meeting. Do we have any public comment?
We do not have any public comment, Commissioner.
Right. Okay, so we'll move right into Mr. Ron Barton with the quarterly financial report.
Thank you, Commissioner. Dan, if you could pull up the financial report, administrative report. Thank you, everyone. And by the way, Joe Collier is the only casualty of this moving from hybrid to virtual. Unfortunately, Joe showed up at the building, and so he and I talked, and so he's enjoying the outdoors while he participates.
Let me in, man. And security guards are like, you're not coming in.
The food truck out there, I think, Joe.
So Dan, could you move to the first table? Okay, thank you. So commissioners, as always, I want to give you a quarterly report on the tourist development tax. This first table is a report out on the 3 cent. So this is the first 3 cent of the tourist development tax, which, as you all know, is the core funding element for marketing and promotion of our community for tourism and visitor-based economy. So what you see here is the second quarter report, starting with the revenues that we have collected. You'll see the annual budget on the left, our quarterly collection in the year to date. And so you can see that we're tracking very well on collections relative to budget. We're actually exceeding our budget estimate, which is a good thing. And we'll see that as well when I present and Santiago presents on the tourist development revenue collections trend line. Towards the bottom of the sheet, you'll see the primary contractual obligations of the 3 cent. And so you'll see the Sports Commission, the CVB's tourism primary funding, the out-of-area marketing, all the way down through Plant City Sports Complex. I've said this in each meeting, but we'll remind you, we have, for instance, the Plant City Sports Complex by mutual agreement with the folks in Plant City, and Nate, thanks for helping in that. They basically agreed to stand down on that project until we kind of got our legs under us related to COVID and the impacts. So you'll see that's zero, and basically it will be zero through the end of the fiscal year. It was just one way that we wanted to protect ourselves in case we continue with downside risk issues associated with collections, the tourist development tax. All the other items will be funded through the budgeted amount. You see 0 for the Super Bowl, but we've actually processed those payments in the last couple of weeks or so. So you'll see when I bring you the third quarter, that full $3 million that was committed to support the Super Bowl has been expended. But for the second quarter report, it was still outstanding. Dan, if you could go to the next page. So the next page is what we call the 6 cent. It's 1 penny and 1 cent. And this has 3 obligations that we have made associated with it. And so again, you can see the revenue collections at the top side, and then on the bottom, we had 3 contractual obligations associated with the 6 cent. The first is the convention center. This is a matching amount that we match with the city of Tampa to do additional capital improvements to the convention center. And again, the city, like Plant City, was a good partner in the sense that when COVID hit, it was one of the areas that we targeted to kind of hit a pause button and allow us to not get too far out there in terms of risk, in terms of expenditures relative to revenues. And so the city was a great partner of saying, okay, we can kind of pause what we're doing. And so what you'll see right there is the amounts that we approved when we started back up. We actually gave the city the high sign. Rob Rosner's with us and can talk a little bit about that. But basically, we advised the city, based on the collections, that we could move forward. So there's a high probability you'll see that full $2 million expended before the end of the fiscal year. The Tampa Bay CVB gets 30% as the Board of County Commission approved the item for the 6 cent increase. And so 30% just automatically goes to Visit Tampa Bay for additional baseline marketing and promotion. And then we allocated the remainder of the funds to what we call the cultural and attraction-based facilities. And that as well, you'll see 0. We worked with all of the entities that were in what we call the capital asset program prior to moving it over to the 6 cent. And those are folks like the Straz and the Glazier and the theater. They all agreed to basically stand down on any initiatives for FY 21. And so that's why you see a 0. It was just an additional way for us to kind of protect ourselves. We intend to, and I'll talk a little bit about this, but we intend to obviously pick that program up with the new 2-year budget. So that's the quarterly reports there. What I do want, I'll come back at the end of just the overall administrative report and give you some context about next steps for adoption of the 22-23 budget and some of our thinking associated with that. But let me go ahead and go through the standard reports, and then I'll advise the TDC on some additional matters. So Dan, could you go to the next slide? Again, you're used to seeing these, but this is the overall collections. So this is the full 6 cent, the 1 through 6. And the highlighted cell is when we adopted the 6 cent. So clearly that was an additional collection we started at the end of FY19. And so it's just it's a note as you look at data to understand that that was an additional 1 cent collection starting then. If you could go to the next slide, it's actually a little more useful. This is the 3 cent. And so you have some anomalies here, but I want to make sure I explain them. So you see on the left column in terms of annual change, you'll see the percentages that decreased over the course of the first part of this year. That's a true picture from pre-COVID to COVID impacts in this current fiscal year. So you can see that they've ranged, pretty much in the 30 to 45% down over previous year. And so that makes sense. We understand that from an industry perspective. But then you see the data associated with April. And the reason that looks odd is it's comparing to an actual COVID month in the previous year, if that makes sense to everyone. So the reason it actually is up is it's comparing to the very first month we got hit by COVID last year. So just, it's an anomaly in the way we show the data there. The other is, which is encouraging, is you can look at the the March and the April data, and you can see that on the one hand, you could say, well, they're flat, but let me, in Santiago, I'll speak to this as well, but the March data in this table is the Super Bowl month. And so what you see is we're actually would have normally been less than that without the impact of the Super Bowl. And so that if you look at it, it would be a trend line continuing upward, right? With April being a real strong month. We'll still have some variability over the next couple of months, but nonetheless, those two strong months were with Super Bowl and then the month after Super Bowl impacts. And then Dan, if you could, just go to the next. I'm not going to show all three. Again, each one's individual in the sense that this is the 3 cent, the next one is the 4th and 5th, and the next one's the 6th. They're all going to show the same trend line. It's just the data sources are unique to them. But you see that flattening out on the brown or gold line. If you would have smoothed that line out, it basically would have been without Super Bowl. So the reason that March number is higher and it looks like we flattened out a little bit is because that was an extraordinary month with Super Bowl in it. So I'm going to stop there for a second and just see if there are any questions associated with the financial data or the tourist development tax information. And then, Madam Chair, I'd like to go ahead and also talk a little bit about some next steps since we did decide to not bring the budget adoption forward this month. So I'll open it up to any questions.
Is there anyone with questions?
Hey, this is Mayor Castor. Just so I understand the 2021 numbers where we see the obvious increase for the Super Bowl, but then as you stated, Ron, the flattening out, but it's still flattening out at a much higher level, correct?
Absolutely. No, it's, all encouraging signs, and I'm sure Santiago will reinforce that. We might have a soft month, but basically we're rebounding.
Excellent.
And that's, it's good news. We're not back to the pre-pandemic, but
We're on our way.
We're on our way at least. Exactly.
Amen.
It's encouraging. So, Madam Chair, if you will, I can take it from here again.
Okay, go ahead with the next steps.
You all will recall, and I'm sorry for the curveball over the last month and a half. We had originally intended to go ahead and bring the 2-year budget to the TDC for adoption. For those that have been on the TDC for some years, May is our usual month to have the TDC adopt the 2-year budget, which would have been 22 and 23. As we prepared that information, obviously we were starting to get initial information about the American Rescue Plan, and felt that there was certainly guidance in there on a generic basis that talked about revenue replacement or revenue recovery for losses. So I would say this, unless we get an extremely odd technical guidance from the Treasury over the next 30 days or so, it is my intent to bring to the TDC and to the Board of County Commission a TDT budget that looks like the pre-pandemic budgets that we had. And so it would basically be funding levels comparable to 2021 prior to COVID. And the reason we're having to just make sure that our ducks in a row there is, to the extent that our revenues collected over the next 2 years don't match that budget, as you can imagine, we're anticipating using ARP funds to be the stopgap of any shortfall. I think it's a very credible approach. I think it's consistent with the general guidance we have to date, but we want to make sure we've got all our ducks in a row related to that. So I didn't want to put out a budget today that maybe we needed to refine in some manner over the next 30 days or 60 days. So that's why I ask for your patience in allowing us to bring it to you in August at the TDC meeting. And that'll still be timely for inclusion for the Board of County Commission, as well as they adopt the overarching county budget. So I'm encouraged. I don't want to say it, that it's definitive, but we feel reasonably comfortable that we can put some budget dollars out there for all of our partners that look a lot like the pre-COVID world. And if we're short a little bit, we hope we can backstop that with the American Rescue Plan dollars. So hence the reason that we kind of moved from hybrid back to virtual, is I didn't want to waste your time other than Joe Collier's standing in the corner. And so that's the game plan. So I wanted to just tune everybody into that. And Madam Chair, if I could, I'll just stop there and see if anybody, I don't want to deliberate details, but I am happy to talk about, the general approach.
Is there anybody with questions about that? For myself, because this does come to the county commission, and just in terms of in past years, and I would have just brought this up at first, and it's not a I don't know about this year, because obviously we have our, as you said, we're going to see about the American Rescue Plan and how how we can get back to our normal priorities. But I do want to say that I have had 2 areas of interest in terms of where I see that this could be helpful. And it may not be the year to do this, but I've discussed with Mayor Castor about this and have mentioned it for several years, and that's paneling, solar panels on the convention center. And in some way that would save tremendously on operating costs for years forward. And so I just want to raise that. And the other long-term thing that I think falls within, or could and should fall within this budget that I'm concerned about, is streetcar operations, which are quite substantial. And, where I see that some kind of contribution could be made through this budget. I think we're talking about something like $6 million, and for the last, right now, as it stands, and for the last several years, FDOT has moved in with a few $1 million that is no longer being done. So I'm just putting those out as considerations now early on in terms of, as I said, maybe it can't be done within this budget, but it's something that I'd like to see if there's ways of doing that. I don't know if anyone else has anything else.
Yes.
I do, Commissioner Kemp. I know we have discussed, and I've looked at the solar panels on the convention center since my swearing in, and we have been exploring that, as we have with a number of city buildings and flat parcels as well. Mm-hmm. I know that the county has a great interest in going in that area. So that's something that we definitely will focus on. And then as far as a streetcar, I'm sure you may have heard, but David Gwynn said the other day that they have just a little less than $1 million that they're going to be able to provide to continue the no fare process on the streetcar. So that's good taking us. We're seeing so many people using that as a mode of transportation, being able to park more cheaply in Ybor and come down to the city of Tampa to work, as opposed to solely tourists. So very excited about that. And Ron, I'm not sure, but where he fits in the process, but I know that Rob Rosner has a presentation on the improvements to the convention center teed up and ready to go. So I don't know if that's coming in general discussion, but that may be illuminating for a lot of the board and the public as well.
Great. And I did not know that David Quinn did that. I hadn't heard it. So that's good news. Of course, that's just going to be for 1 year, and this is a continuing, ongoing issue. And I think a contribution would be a good thing, because it's certainly important to our convention center and to our visitors here. So with that, I guess we'll move to if there's no other comments, to the Tampa Bay Convention and Visitor Center Bureau, Santiago. I guess you have the quarterly activity report?
Yep, and Santiago, before you start, I just wanted to pick up on the mayor's cue.
Oh, I'm
So
sorry,
yes,
I was confused because I didn't see anything different on the agenda.
You didn't. So we had kind of a last minute request from the city, and Rob Rosner is going to join us. And so it's not on the agenda that I sent out, but the mayor's correct. I want to make sure we all note that Rob Rosner is going to join us for a presentation on what's been happening at the convention center. And I think it'd be very helpful. It's a recap on what they've been doing there. I thought it'd be helpful, and Rob and the mayor have asked that they give the TDC an update on that. And since we were virtual and not voting, I just chose not to adjust the agenda, and we just did it on the fly. But yeah, mayor's correct. Rob will follow Santiago. Madam Chair, I'll turn it back to you to turn it to Santiago.
Santiago, you're on.
Good morning, honorable council members, our mayors, county commissioner, Ron, anyone who's watching. If we could pull up the presentation, I'd appreciate it. And go to the third slide in, please. So we're doing a second quarter presentation, which is January, February, March numbers. And these are industry numbers, Smith Travel Research numbers, looking at March. And as you will recall, this is going to be an interesting presentation because we're going to be looking at half impacted month, because March was a half impacted pandemic month back in 20. And you see Hillsborough County alone in the first two columns, and the changes that we've seen March to March, and again, a half impacted March of last year. You see the Florida numbers there, and then you see the US numbers there. And I want to point out just a couple of things, and I think Ron alluded a little bit to this. Remember, we're dealing with several thousand more hotel rooms that are on the books this March versus last March. So that's number one. Number two, you see that maybe our increased numbers aren't as high as maybe the Florida numbers, but we took off like a rocket initially. So now Florida, the rest of Florida is starting to catch up as far as their gains, but we saw tremendous gains pretty early on because we really never stopped, marketing in a responsible way and selling. So again, March, over 70% occupancy, and I can tell you I have preliminary numbers for April, actual numbers, and April is hovering around 73% occupancy. So in the next quarter where we capture April, you should see some good numbers. Additionally, when Mr. Barton sees the revenue numbers for April, which you'll see sometime in June, those numbers will actually be pretty strong as well. So on the next slide, I can show you, again, it would be unfair to really start comparing against last year, a half impacted month. So on this slide, we show occupancy for March of 2019, which was record-setting pace. You see what happened with a half a month impacted March of last year, and then you see where we are this March. So back to Mayor Castor's point, yes, the recovery is well underway. And I have to remind, again, our audience that we're still missing international visitors. International visitation is still off the board. Our conventions and meetings are about 50 to 60% in person, with about 40% still in a virtual mode like this. And the cruise industry is still off the table. So when you think of those factors coming back into play, and the thousands of new hotel rooms that we have on the books, you know, we're headed in a good direction. Next slide, please. Average daily rates. You see what it was pre-pandemic, half-pandemic month of March, and then this March, moving again in the right direction, but not to pre-pandemic numbers, but good movement there. Next slide should be our revenue for all of our available rooms. And again, we have more available rooms. So take that into note when you look at that $79.32. We actually have, you know, quite a few more rooms. When you think about the hotels that have opened during the pandemic, and you factor in the Hard Rock Hotel, the JW Marriott, the 2 Hyatt properties downtown, the Aloft and Element Midtown, Hotel Haya, and I'm sure I'm missing some others out in the East County, North Tampa area. You're adding quite a few rooms that were not available for us back in March of 2019 and really March of 2020. So that number is even more impactful when you consider all of that. Next slide. I'll let you savor this one for a minute because I love savoring this slide, and I hope you can see it. You know, for occupancy for March, and I can tell you throughout most of the pandemic, it has looked a lot like this, except that now some of these other destinations are starting to open up, and you're starting to see those bars move more to the right. But I can tell you that we have been in that number 1, 2 position in this comp set for convention-related business for quite some time. So it's a good place to be in the comp set. That's for occupancy for March. The next one should be for average daily rates. If we could show that one, please. See there again near the top, and you see the I'll let you savor that one for a minute as well, because I love when we look against the rest of the country. And let me explain, Tampa Bay means Hillsborough County. That's just the wordage, the verbiage, excuse me, that Smith Travel Research uses. So it is Hillsborough County. It's not Pinellas, Hillsborough. It is Hillsborough County alone. Next slide, it would be revenue for all available rooms. And, you know, again, that $79.32 with all of the rooms that have come online compared to some of the others is even more significant considering what we saw during the pandemic. I think we added more hotel rooms during the pandemic than collectively than at any other time during, you know, my last certainly 8 to 10 years doing this business. So again, great movement there. Next slide. So Hillsborough County hotel performance, and this is data for actual January, February, March, which are still recovery months. You see, compared to last year, January, February, March, with January, February being record setters and March being half impacted. So you're really comparing recovery versus 2 record-setting months in January, February, and half a month impacted in March. So you see that those significant drops aren't as significant considering what we were comparing against last year. So this is occupancy, numbers for Hillsborough County performance, occupancy, average daily rates, revenues. Next slide really looks at our sub-markets, starting with downtown. And you see those actual numbers averaged out for the true months of January, February, March of this year, and how it compares again to those months last year, with 2 of those months last year being record setters and one half impacted, or March would have been a record setter as well. Next slide should be our East County, not East Tampa, but East County. Again, that's just a verbiage that is used by Smith Travel Research. And quite honestly, as we've mentioned in prior meetings, East County and North Tampa, which you'll see on the next slide, have been, because of the mix of business in those areas, have been performing almost close to pre-pandemic, as you can see here with those numbers. And then the last slide should be our West Shore district for January, February, and March of this year compared to that quarter last year. As we go on here to the next slide, you'll see county taxable revenue, and Ron has alluded to this, but I'm doing the quarter right. The January, February, March numbers, which really represent collections from December, January, February. So if you're comparing this fiscal year 21, you're comparing to record-setting December, January, February of 20 and December, January, February of 19. So keep that in mind. You're comparing recovery versus pre-pandemic numbers for all 3 months. Although it says March, it's February collections that come in as the March number. So we're always in the rears 1 month on collections. Next slide will show the bed tax collections, all 6% for those 3 months. Again, December, January, February of this year compared to pre-pandemic numbers. And then the next slide, I believe, shows, which is really collection September through February, the movement of the yellow line. And you'll see pretty soon here, the difference, the percentage difference will be astronomical, because we will be comparing true recovery to true pandemic. And so you see that blue line, that big dip, and that yellow line, we hope will continue in the upward trajectory. So that gap will be huge here, but we'll always compare back to 19 to be fair. So that's all taxable revenue for the county. Next slide, a different representation is the bed tax collections, and that little yellow line starts really then moving here with what Ron has already explained. But again, this is just for the 3 months, which, I'm sorry, this is for the fiscal year, October through March. So different representations, all good news, showing in different ways. Next slide, please. And we keep a heartbeat here with the paddles on county revenue. And you see that nice big spike there in February. It's a Super Bowl paddle applied to the patient, and you see that big jump in the heartbeat. But you still see some nice heartbeat after Super Bowl, which is really, really encouraging all the way through the current numbers that we have of April 24th. So again, the patient is reviving quite well here. We love showing this because it shows how the patient was on life support back in April of last year, and how we've been trying to bring it back to life. Next slide. So convention sales, Q2, landing some nice business for future years here. This is in addition to relocations and others that I'll talk about here in a few minutes. So almost 56,000 rooms for future years, and you see we're booking things out all the way to 2028, believe it or not. But you know, business is starting to pick up. As you'll see on the next slide, we were successful in rebooking a number of events that were impacted from March through December of last year, with one landing this year and many landing into future years. So 2022, 23, 24 looking really nice. And then the next slide gets a little bit more into who these folks are that are relocations from other states. I want to draw attention to one that will not be relocating. That's on the third column top. When we put this presentation together, there was a possibility that group would be moving from their current site for this year, and that is not going to happen. As you might imagine, other destinations now are opening up and saying, you can't leave us, you got to stay with us. So we've had quite a few relocate this year. This is just for this year. So we should see a lot of great movement with occupancy and revenues moving through, as you can see here, through November, with lots of relocations from lots of other places around the country, and obviously there you see the estimated economic impact. That's what that EEI means. Back to Bob's point that, we capture a lot more than just hotel revenue when we have conventions and groups come to our city, our county. Next slide, please. Multicultural relocations and new events really going very, very well. You saw that the August was not going to happen for us with the ancient Egyptian Arabic Order of the Mystic Shrine, but they are tentative for 2026, which is huge because they're coming to us in 2023 as well. So you can see, some great movement on multicultural business development with new events, relocations. And Dr. Clayton, some of you may know, worked for Dr. Martin Luther King when he was alive. She was in the office with him and has become so affectionate towards our destination that she's celebrating her 90th birthday here shortly. So she was here a few years ago, enjoyed herself so much that she is coming back to celebrate a milestone birthday with us. So we're super excited about that. Next slide. Media value and corporate exposure is off the charts for this quarter. Obviously, a lot of that Super Bowl driven, but a lot of it also just the attention we've been getting as a destination that's safe to come and visit and to come and enjoy. So everybody wants to write about a safe place that you can come and enjoy. And so that's why you see here 668% of your Q2 goal because quite honestly, we've capitalized on pandemic and other parts of the country being closed or not really safe to visit, and we've been able to demonstrate that in a very unique way that we are very safe to visit. Next slide, please. So Super Bowl recap, since it was mentioned, and that heartbeat jumped. Next slide. Look at that performance for Super Bowl, 5th through the 8th of February. You can actually still see the pandemic effect on Monday, where it dips right back below. But again, performed better than our last Super Bowl during those dates. So a pretty dramatic shot in the arm for us in February. You can see that average daily rates and occupancy just way above last year. But more importantly, last year was a record-setting February, but more importantly, better than our last Super Bowl. So again, pandemic Super Bowl performing better than your last regular Super Bowl is pretty incredible. Next slide. Again, revenue per available room and all revenues generated. You see that this year versus last year. February was not impacted last year by the pandemic and was a record-setting. Second best tourism month for us in our history was last February, believe it or not, before the pandemic hit in March. And so this pandemic still recovery month of February was better than that. Next slide, please. And so, oh my gosh, we were able to capture so much data. The data is kind of scary because now everyone has a smartphone and everyone can be tracked as far as zip codes and area codes and locals versus non-locals and heat mapped. So we did have quite a lot of data that we collected. Next slide, see how this shows. This is points of interest for non-residents during Super Bowl weekend. So you can actually see where people were that were from outside of the area. We actually had heat mapping going on based on what I've already told you, how we can pinpoint people, and you can see that a Super Bowl impacts more than just the city limits and other parts of the county. So it's really great to be able to have that kind of data at at our disposal. Next slide, please. And here's what I'm talking about, where we were actually able to see over days where people were and what they were doing throughout Hillsborough County, which is amazing to have that kind of technology. We've come a long way, Bob. I mean, to be able to have stuff like this where we know what an event would impact in our community, our broader community. So super excited about that data. Next slide, please. So Super Bowl media relations, incredible amount of coverage, $3 million+ value in media placements. Corporate exposure, 1 million plus in media value, and you see there the numbers. Next slide, please. And just the images that were coming out of the destination, either through the Sports Commission, through us, through the city, through the county, just amazing. When you look at Instagram, better than 95% of the posts on our Visit Tampa page were Super Bowl related, following all those metrics now that we apply to social media off the charts. Next slide, please. And give you a little recap here. I think hopefully this video will play on the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl 55 is heading to Tampa, but this year's big game will be quite different due to COVID. The city is still hoping for a much-needed boost to its local economy.
Now, this had the potential to be possibly one of the biggest Super Bowls in history because the home team is playing in its home state.
Folks that want to come and visit the destination, the weather here is fantastic. And obviously, there's this great excitement about the history-making possibility of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning the Super Bowl at home.
And JBU gets to Tampa, which is already enjoying some home field advantage, since they are hosting this year's big game.
I'm in Cuba. And speaking of Cuba, the Cuban sandwich, not invented in Havana, but right here in Tampa, FLA. And then you have the scene where you go from Tampa to Cuba. Tony and I both looked at Anthony and said, is that true? Can you go to Cuba? That's something I learned.
Cute. Welcome back to GMA on this Saturday morning. Everyone's getting into the Super Bowl spirit. We know even Pebbles and Keeney there pose with the Lombardi Trophy and take in all the sights. Pretty cute.
That's like the only thing that makes me interested in football.
Okay, are y'all so pumped? This is so exciting. We get why you've won all the awards. Yeah, totally. And then I want that word.
Listen, the headlines already that have been written. History making, right? So history making, everyone wants to be a part of history making. We need it now more than ever. You talked about, is this the time? It's the perfect time for us to have our hometown team.
And I also want to mention that Rob has a great recap of the Super Bowl. This was just a snapshot on the social media factors, the marketing efforts. So talking about marketing efforts, let me run through some very quick slides here on our recovery efforts. Next slide, please. Since October, the beginning of the fiscal year, we have been out there selling the destination to leisure travelers and tourists. We've seen over 270,000 hotel rooms booked with an estimated hotel revenue of over $41 million directly attributed to marketing efforts. This is, you see it, you click on it, you book. We mark it down and we make sure that it's part of the record. So some great movement there. Next slide shows some of the folks we're using through these campaigns that give us some of this data. So if you're watching Hulu outside of the area, you see a lot of us. And here are some of those results as far as impressions and connected TV impressions. So again, doing very, very well with the use of connected TV specifically. Next slide. This is some of the stuff you would see if you were watching Hulu outside the area. And again, great dynamic pictures that show, lots of space for you to enjoy our destination. Next slide, please. Not sure if this is a video. Is this a video? Oh, yeah, it is, I think.
It is a video.
Okay, could you play it? This is a 30-second spot. Okay, next slide, and I'm just about to wrap up here. We have a lot of upcoming coverage here. In fact, next slide. Traveling with Danella Richard. She came to town. She's been all over the world. It plays on the CW in Miami, so we want people from Miami to come and visit with us. She came to do one show, and for the price of one show, we got two because she had so much to cover. And it played this past Sunday, Mother's Day, down in Miami, and part two plays this Sunday in Miami, and then it streamed globally. So lots of attention there, and believe it or not, the Brazilian press is picking up. They can't wait to come back to visit us. Smithsonian Magazine is going to have some coverage on us. Next slide, please. We started a new podcast, videocast, Unlocking Tampa Bay's Treasures, with Serena Fazan, where she gets out there and visits with many of our industry stakeholders. The first one was a Super Bowl recap. The second one was focused on Ybor, and the one she's working on now is focused on all of our great attractions. So we're mixing it up, putting in all kinds of focus throughout the entire county, which is really, really great. Next slide. These are some of our partnerships for promotions and leisure sales. And before we go to the next slide, we've been a leader in diversity, equity, and inclusion for a decade, for many, many years. Whether it was ethnic diversity, gender diversity, LGBTQ plus diversity, we've covered it. And now we're moving into looking at how inclusive we are with disabled populations. And so this next video I'm very, very proud of, because we're starting to highlight how inclusive and accessible we really are. And the person in this video chose these places to go to. And I was so happy to see that it covered city and county. And so I hope you'll enjoy this video, and it's my last, and then I'll turn it over back to our Madam Chair.
Welcome to sunny Tampa Bay. I'm Jamie, your accessible travel expert. My passion to explore all things accessible in Tampa is constantly evolving. As a travel advisor and travel enthusiast myself, I absolutely love sharing my tips and tricks. You know, some of the most accessible attractions in Tampa are actually step-free. So come along as I share with you my ultimate guide to Florida's most accessible destination. We're here at the Tampa Bay History Center. This is our first stop, and Manny is here to show us around. Oh my gosh, I really love how the screens show the constellations. You know, one of the things that I noticed touring the exhibits in my wheelchair is this openness of everything, the accessibility.
We routinely walk the galleries and make sure that we are hitting the mark and that we are making the History Center as accessible as possible.
Oh my goodness, I've never seen an elevator this big before. I can have a dance party in here. For wheelchair users, the Tampa Riverwalk is ideal with all of its paved pathways. There's so much to see on your journey through the 2.6 miles that you can travel. There's restaurants, shops, tons of things to do. We couldn't have asked for a better day to do this, truly. And while you're on the Riverwalk, check out Pirate Water Taxi. There are several spots to get on and off. The water taxis are wheelchair accessible, and guide dogs are allowed on board too. The captains give great information about Tampa. It's a beautiful view and a relaxing ride. I wonder if we'll see any gators out here today. You know, we've never really been to many parks that have a boardwalk like this that's so long. This is incredible. Usually they're not that accessible. I just absolutely love being able to get right in the center of the outdoors. Kevin and I are now at the Florida Aquarium. Oh, wow, look at this. Beautiful. You could spend your entire day just sitting right here. Everything is so wide open and accessible. You know, it's so easy for me to navigate. Oh my goodness. so excited to be here today and to get to go and fly. I've done a lot of research about iFly and indoor skydiving because, you know, for me, I think it might be difficult to go regular skydiving, and this being an option for people with disabilities, I think is incredible.
We try to let everybody experience what it feels like to fly in the wind tunnel or in free fall.
That was so cool! And that's a wrap on some of my favorite places to visit in Tampa Bay. Whether you're a nature lover or an adventure seeker, just know that the accessibility and the opportunities are endless, and I can't wait for you to explore them.
Thank you so much for your support. We couldn't do these incredible things without, obviously, Mr. Barton and our city and our county support, and obviously our industry stakeholders. So thank you. It's always a pleasure to report on a quarter, especially it's getting better to report on quarters now. Thank you so very, very much for your attention this morning.
Thank you, as usual. Great job. Awesome news. It's just great to see all that. So I guess we're going to move now to the updates on the Tampa Convention Center. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Me.
Ron, did you want to start?
Jump right in, Rob.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, members of the Tourist Development Council and distinguished guests. I want to thank you for allowing the city to report on the progress of the renovations at the Tampa Convention Center. Next slide, please. Today we're going to talk about the history of the project funding, the improvements of the completed to date, hotels that are directly in the vicinity of the convention center, and improvements around the building that are exterior, and improvements that are currently underway. Next slide, please. So this one's a little bit, give you a history of where we came from and what we've been doing for the past 6 years. So in 2015, the Tourist Development Council pledged $10 million over 5 years at a reimbursement rate of about $2 million per year. During that time, the requirements were to spend it in that same year and get it done and get reimbursed. And that became an issue for just procurement reasons and the timing of getting things done and then approved for reimbursement. So in 2016, the CRA approved a match for another $10 million, and the CRA took out a loan for $20 million that the city would, or the CRA would pay the interest. That allowed us to go ahead and do a number of planned improvements and not have that get it done in the same year effort have to do with that. So in that, we asked for a second modification to bring that, to allow the $20 million loan to be paid out from 2017 through 2021. And so we proceeded with the design and renovations to expand about $16.8 million of that loan on a number of renovations, which we'll go over momentarily. Improvements like Big Rays, the Sail Plaza, etc. And then in 2018, we asked for a third modification to add 2 more years for the expansion and related renovations. And we were down that process and working towards that and right before the pandemic. So the city has received about $8.5 of that million in reimbursement, and that's been paid towards the CRA loan. And Ron had made a mention of how we're working through that now. So during the pandemic to current, the remainder loans being spent out for about $7 million worth of contracts with a new design build contractor we put an RFQ out for with Skanska. So that's where the remainder of the loan that we currently have is being done, and that's, I'm going to report on it next. Next slide, please. So I'd like to highlight a list of the improvements completed to date. The first item is the preliminary master plan, which is officially wrapping up in the next couple of weeks, and we'll share that plan this summer. Rolling back to 2016, the project started actual construction. The restrooms were the first major piece of work, which included remodeling and upgrading of approximately 170 toilet stalls and related accessibility improvements. And I'm glad that Santiago brought up that video of how accessible that is. We've received very similar compliments with the convention center of how many new improvements we've made for accessibility as part of this. So as I move down here, some of those will be, I'll highlight some of those. So we made all of our bathrooms accessible. The Sail Plaza improvements, if you don't recall what the Sail Plaza was like before, you used to have to go around the entire plaza in order to get up there. We put in a new ramp, which we call ramp number 1. And then we also put in ramp number 4, which you'll see an image of that. So that was the one that's all the way by the Platte Street Bridge. We put in shade structures at the Sail Pavilion. We put in 2 pet areas. We had to put in a stormwater vault for the area, and we upgraded some of those pieces. And then we made a major iconic structure, which everybody seems to love now. And they did Super Bowl parties and other parties there. And it's really activated that as the other bookend, where on Water Street, the History Center, which we just highlighted, is the other bookend for that. So that has been very successful, and we're very happy how that's turned out. And of course, Big Race Fish Camp, which is the food service portion of what the bar was doing. And prior to that, we were walking from the bistro, all the food across the parking lot in order to serve that food. Now that it's right there, we're getting a much higher rate. This becomes a much more rentable space, and a lot of people really enjoy it. And part of doing that, we had to improve the bathrooms out there. When we built those a number of years ago, they were at a lower elevation, and due to the new sea level rise issues and the new flood elevations, we had to raise that area up about 3 feet, and that's why that took quite a bit of work to convert that and make that work. And then during that process, we also converted the Bay Bistro that was inside the building, which used to serve the food to the Sail, to a DATS. And we were just getting started with DATS when the pandemic hit, but as we get back into it, we'll see more activity there. Then we also converted the bar area to a nourished food bowl. So instead of it being a passive area, now it becomes a very active area. And that's where you can get your rice, your protein, that kind of thing. And that becomes another lunch option for visitors who come. And then we did renovations of the ballroom lighting, which was something that really needed a lot of work. Then we did refurbishment of the meeting rooms and ballroom air wall partitions. Those were in desperate need. Those hadn't been changed in 26 years. So those new coverings there make that a lot better looking. You'll see some photos here in a few. Then the freight elevator refurbishment, which was a big issue, and we actually did have at a time when that went down, and it was very painful not having a backup elevator. And we're working on incorporating that, and that $7 million is putting in a new service elevator, which is mentioned here in a moment. A new service elevator that is almost as strong as a freight elevator, but will serve this as a good backup. Of course, the exterior restrooms that we mentioned at Big Ray's, and then we've had a number of HVAC air handler replacements. We've done some of them. There are more to be done. Then we renovated the coffee bar at the convention level. It used to be called the Ybor Cafe. Now it's Starbucks. And then we renovated all the concessions on the convention floor inside there. And so those are now all branded and have all new facilities, and they're going to serve different menu items as well, which we heard a lot from our conventioneers of what they wanted to see differently. And then we went with new ballroom carpeting and painting, which you'll see some photos of very soon. And then new finishes in the meeting rooms. And then we also took to heart with the idea of energy efficiency improvements building wide. We are evaluating, solar, but we wanted to go ahead and take care of the low-hanging fruit ones, like converting the kitchen to gas. That saves us around $30,000 to $60,000 annually, if not more. And then anytime we touch our lighting, we're converting them to LED, and we're seeing the benefits of the reduced cost of energy consumption through that LED lighting, and a preference from a lot of conventioneers for the quality of the light being better. Next slide, please. So I'd like to talk about the hotels near the convention center. I know that, Santiago could rattle these off with his eyes closed. But I wanted to give you a good sense of what this is going to look like. This is a photo that was produced by SPP of what they think these new improvements will be and where their new buildings are going to be. But not everybody knows how close they are, how dense the downtown's going to be, and how live and activated. So as you mentioned, we had the Marriott Waterside that came in 1997 area time, Embassy Suites, 7, 8 years later. The JW Marriott, which finished this last year in time for Super Bowl. Obviously the Sheraton and A-Lot for conversions. And then in downtown, across from City Hall, we have Hyatt Place and Hyatt House. And then there's the Edition Hotel, and condos are underway and should be open soon. Other hotels that are not in the photo but do affect the area, there's the Barrymore, which is the northern downtown. Le Meridian, which is one of our redevelopment projects where we took the old federal courthouse, converted that to 140 rooms. Home 2 Suites in the Hampton Inn, that's over in the Channel District at the corner of Meridian and Kennedy. The Westin Tampa, which is just off the slide here. And then Residence Inn, the Florida Inn Hotel, and the Courtyard by Marriott, which just can't be seen in this photo, but wanted to highlight those. Next slide, please. So improvements around the building, and I like this because not everybody sees it, but when they know these things are happening, but when you look at them in a number of things that happen in the time. So let's start with the top here. Harpoon Harry's was a rental space that we took the old History Center space that was on the Franklin Street. When they moved into their new building, we hadn't activated that space. We cleaned it out as a storage and put it out, and Harpoon Harry's put in around $8.2 million worth of improvements. And if you haven't eaten there, I encourage you to eat there. It's a great place. And so they officially opened in 2019. That was a major activation, and just in time for the pandemic to see numbers go down. And then on the lower half of the site, I mentioned the ramps 1 and 4. We'll go from left to right here. So ramp 4 is the new bike ramp that was added over on Platt Street. It used to only be about 5 feet wide and used to have a mirror there. People would almost have to say, it's your turn to go down or come up. So we did a fair amount of analysis to improve that. So we widened that to 9 feet and put a landing up there of 20 feet. So basically turned it into a true street corner where people can work that and it's still accessible and everything. So get a lot of compliments on that, improve that from an accessibility standpoint. Then the ramp number 3 and ramp number 2 and the new meeting rooms, you'll see there's highlighted in blue. That's all in the next package that we're working on right now. So part of our $7 million that we're spending currently is master plan and the final construction documents to do the new meeting rooms, which should be 18 new meeting rooms and about 18,000 square feet gross with about 17,000 net. And that includes new restrooms to support that and the HVAC that goes along with it. But doing the ramps 2 and 3 make that lower Riverwalk fully accessible because right now there's no ramp 2. So what we'll be doing there is taking out all the stairs except for the stairs at the end, at each end, and putting ramps in. That way, between the columns and the face of the building can be activated and can be rented, and they can still keep the Riverwalk fully open at 17 feet wide where it's at. So with that makes that fully accessible, makes what I call the port, the remaining columns underneath, activatable, rentable, like we do for Gasparilla, where they set up 300 tables and everybody eats outside. It's wonderful. So without having to worry about bikes wandering through the tables and having accessible route. Just as a reference here, the Death's Restaurant in 2019 was completed. It's just right inside that window that's there. And upcoming improvements for the drop-off area, which we will be showing you during the master plan process. And then, of course, the Sale Plaza and Big Rays, which was completed in 2019 and 2018 for the ramp number 1. So all those have made, the entire route for the Riverwalk fully accessible from Platt Street all the way to the Harbor Island Bridge. And if you haven't been underneath the Harbor Island Bridge, there's a great installation that was done for Lights on Tampa, and that was fantastic, and we commend our arts department for doing such a great job of getting the right person to do the right kind of art there. Next slide, please. So this is a little bit closer to show what's, a view of that here. And then the drop-off area, what we're seeing is changing the way we operate the parking in this area, also making this so it could be a true rentable space, and then we could set up a number of events. The landscaping in those islands that are in the center, we've had requests in previous years to have those removed so that they could have more active space. We've actually brought a bomber out there, we've tanks, we've done really great things through Suffolk and some of our bigger clients. And so with that activation, that is part of this master plan we're looking at. It's not a lot of money to make those changes, but it'll have a great effect on how we can activate that space. And if you haven't been out for Suffolk, it's an amazing presentation they make, and with them connect the mayor and do the whole piece that they do, it's pretty cool. And then of course we added shade structures, and of course big rays in the restrooms is highlighted, and then those two pet areas that are highlighted here. One right at the Harbor Island Bridge base where you come out from underneath, and then one by the old bus stop, which we converted the bus stop to a Uber Lyft drop-off where you have to stay in your car and you can't park there. You can just pick and drop there, which really helps with the traffic in this area. Next slide, please. So going back to the improvements completed to date, I mentioned I would show you a number of photos here. So starting from left to right, Dat's Restaurant. You can see we converted the Bay Bistro into a much more walk and pick up, and then we changed the way people walk through the space as well, and moved our drink stations to the side so that people aren't crowding the space trying to get their order in. They can be getting their drink from somewhere else. That's really helped, and then we changed the way the seating worked in the area, and we've gotten great reviews on that. In the center there, you'll see the Nourish bar above and the coffee bar below. So the Nourish used to be a kind of a dark-looking bar with a bunch of chairs, which were nice for you know, alcohol-based events, but they were not as active as our regular events, which are always asking for other options for food. So this gave one of 4 options. Instead of pick drop type sandwiches, you can get, you know, a fresh bowl or salad or that kind of thing from Nourish. Then of course our coffee bar upstairs is branded with Starbucks, and allows us to activate that space for those impromptu meetings when people want to come out from the convention floor and get a quick break, and maybe there's not a coffee service that's been purchased, but they can still get and do that kind of interaction. A lot of business gets done over cups of coffee, I'd imagine. So, and then this last, on the right side here, you can see the renovated bathrooms. If you recall what they used to look like, they used to be very blue and white with a pink stripe through the whole thing. So now they're much more up to speed, and the blue dots you're seeing on there are the stickers where we got our GBEC certification for being a safe and clean environment that Santiago was able to advertise and let us be able to have a number of events here because people knew we were still open for business. Next slide, please. So going around to the improvements that are completed, these are the more exterior ones, and these are a little closer. So from left to right, we're going to show you ramp 4 from getting up the ramp, and then at the top of the ramp, what that looks like now, how much more of an improvement that is. A lot safer with guardrails, improved width, and visibility. And then the pet areas, which is bottom center, if you remember what that used to look like, that used to be really back a house, some trees, a bunch of rocks. It was not a well-managed space. So we converted that to a dog area that's artificial turf that's made specifically for taking pet waste, and a seating wall so you can sit down there and let your dog do his business, and a water fountain that includes a dog fountain as well. And then the far right, at the left of the photo, it also has the station for repairing your bicycle. There's a handful of tools there, so if you're a cyclist, you can handle that. Top center, you're seeing that we've added a fair amount of shade. A lot of people said, hey, it can't all get underneath the pavilion. They want to sit out. Well, we wanted this space to be open and airy, but we really needed some shade, so we found some time and money to be able to do that. Then on the far right side of the photo, you see at the top, you see big rays. And we have a walk-up window and a seating area above, as well as ramps to get you down. As I mentioned before, we had to raise this area about 3 feet in order to get this to meet flood elevations. So that's why the difference in elevations. So we've met all the code and made a really fantastic space. Next slide, please. So moving on inside, Una can attest to this. We've done a lot of work of getting just the right kinds of improvements done. We've done a lot of ceiling work, done new ballroom carpeting, painted the walls, working on the ceiling trim. If you recall, a lot of this was kind of dark and had, just really needed to be brightened up and freshened. And then you can also see the difference in quality of light with the new LED lighting and new ceiling tiles. And then over on the right, you'll see the ballroom lighting up above. Those are the centerpieces there. Those are now fully LED and controlled as they should be. And the new carpet as well. And below, you'll see some of the meeting rooms that have had the same kind of treatments with the new carpet and the new air wall finishes, and repairing some of those where some of the tracks and things have aged over time, and we've needed to get those repaired. Next slide, please. So where we're going, are currently underway is a long-term master plan. We're looking at long-term goals. Again, I mentioned that we would be having something this summer where we share more about that. The final design of the new meeting rooms, which we'll be meeting here very soon about getting final costs and things for that. We did a modernization of the passenger elevators, and all 5 elevators have been switched. As many as we can, we're switching from hydraulic to machine roomless, which takes away one of our concerns about having hydraulic fluid so close to the river. So we are doing some conversions that we're capable of doing. Then a new large service elevator that's being put in that is a great backup for what we're doing. It's a big issue for us to get food service because we when we have 2,500 lunches that have to be served in less than an hour, and they're all being served off first floor up to convention floor, that's a lot to get up there. And if you're relying on one elevator, that's a lot. So that second elevator has been a critical need for many years. And then the renovation of meeting rooms 11 through 13, which is part of this new elevator piece. We're doing kind of a reorganization of that and making that. Now that's a very deep space, and that's actually a conversion that happened in 2001, and now this is just being cleaned up and modified with this new elevator using some of that space, and we're reorganizing. We've been working on some of our chiller renovations partially. Again, that's a bigger item to do at wholesale. Same thing with our HVAC renovations. We're doing partial as we're doing those projects. And then we're doing a design for miscellaneous site improvements, like on Channelside Drive, right at Harpoon Harry's in the front of the Franklin entrance. That is a fairly wide crosswalk, and we're wanting to improve that a little bit with some bump outs, some improved signage. As you know, the CRA years ago had helped Lights on Tampa do the lighting that Erwin Riddle had done. If you haven't been through the tunnel and seen that light display, beautiful. Now we're trying to enhance the walkability of that. And then finalize the wall finishes and meeting rooms and finish that up. And then new concourse fabrics and the carpet and furnishings. And then we're also doing technology upgrades in the meeting rooms and ballrooms. Some of these have to do with key card access. Some of them have to do with lighting controls and some of the pieces that we are often asked for that have just not been able to keep up with technology just over dates. Technology is going faster than keep up. Obviously, we want to try to get those as close to current as we can. Next slide, please. So things that we still have to do. Now we have to still build the meeting rooms. As I mentioned here, the 18 new meeting rooms. We have additional restrooms that go along with the new meeting rooms for the new capacity. The renovation of the 4th floor restrooms, which was something we deferred because of the amount of use, and we wanted to get those convention level and lower done first. The renovation of the remaining meeting rooms and the pre-function areas, and that includes painting and new carpeting, electronic access control security, refinishing of the meeting room fronts, new carpeting in the main corridors, new LED lighting in the meeting rooms, chiller plant modernization, One of those has to do with the fact that some of our chiller plants still run on the old Freon, which are illegal now, and we're grandfathered, but in order to modernize those, we have to take them off one at a time. And then we have other site work improvements like ramps 1, 2, and 3, which we mentioned before, crosswalks at Channelside Drive, and then the drop-off area up at front. And then the remainder of the air handler replacements that are critical, and then we have a signage package for the new facilities that is part of us renumbering some of the rooms and making it a little more make sense of where the room numbers are based on floor. Next slide, please. That concludes what I have, and I want to thank you for allowing me to make this report, and I'd be open for any questions you might have.
Great.
Okay, I just want to say real quick, I know everybody's in a hurry and that was a little bit lengthy, but you can see how much we've done at the convention center and what a regional asset that is. And with the extra meeting rooms, we will be able to bring in additional conferences, much bigger conferences. And I want to give a shout out to Una Garvey and her team, Rob included, for the great job that they have done in bringing these Visit Tampa Bay is aware of this, Santiago and their team, of bringing all of these conferences from other cities that haven't been open and have shown great safety plans, bringing them here, because once they see Tampa Bay, they're not going anyplace else. So very, very proud of the team and glad to see that we have those extra meeting rooms, extra hotel rooms in that particular area. So thank you very much, Rob. Thanks, Santiago. Thanks, Una. Thanks to everybody that's had a hand in improving the convention center lately.
Thank you.
I think for anyone who's used it, it's been when you're down there, it's totally such an improvement and such a great place, a sense of place, and the opening up and the changing and the just brightening of all the rooms, everything that's been done is just makes it, such a more welcoming and wonderful place to be around. I don't know if there's any other comments. I did want to emphasize on that to-do list. I would like to see because I think it says something about our community too, to put up panels on the convention center. As I said, does save on the operations in the future, but I think it reflects something about who we are doing that. So I
agree. And we've been in meetings with TICO about that, as I've found in my days in the mayor's chairs, things don't happen quickly.
Exactly.
We have been in conversation with TICO, and I agree with you, not only from the energy standpoint and the greening of our community, but also as that example where anyone in a building that's higher than 3 stories can see that we have put that as an example for others to follow. So we are working on that as quickly as we can get it done.
It's excellent. I don't know if anyone else had any comments.
Madam Chair, it's Ron. Yes. And thank you, Rob. Well done. And just as a preview for the August meeting, I had mentioned that, we certainly intend to bring the 2-year budget to the board, the TDC, for their deliberation. In addition, Rob's kind of alluded to the fact of what's next in their program of work for the convention center. And we'll be bringing back on the August meeting a request to the city to basically continue the current funding arrangement that we have. So it's basically extending the term of the participation and the match between the TDT and the city. More to come on that, but I just wanted to make sure you had a preview that will be the second major item that we'll want to have on the agenda for August. So that's the preview, and I'll turn it back to you.
Great. Thank you for that. And I don't know if there are any other comments before we adjourn. So with that, great seeing everybody, and we stand adjourned.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Have a great day.